Good evening. This is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Wednesday, the 26th of March. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right, this morning, I was talking on the pre-market video, I was talking about a likely decline we were going to see here, and we saw it. It didn't go quite as far as I was thinking, and I got to say it's left a couple of little remnants behind, which mainly were a reversal, which set up positive divergence, and we've got week 60-minute buy signals now fixed on ES, NQ, RCY, and YM. Sorry, not on YM, but we reached the possible near-miss target on the sell signals. Obviously, when we started this morning, we had full sell signals fixed on ES, NQ, and RTY and YM. So we've now switched over from having 4 sell signals on the US indices to having 3 weaker buy signals. What are we looking at in terms of the patterns? We didn't make it back to the rising support trend lines, and that is something I'm expecting to see, but I'm thinking we may well see a rally first. NQ, the same. RTY did make it down to the rising support, which was interesting, and we got a very nice looking flag there. I think these are all very likely bear flag patterns. I'm expecting to see more downside shortly, but I'm thinking we may well see a rally tomorrow. On YM, this actually started off a little later, unexpectedly, and that's one reason they only made it halfway back to the bear flag support, and also didn't make the full target on the sell signal, but nonetheless, I'm still liking the downside here. On DAX and the STX, nothing really happened here. I mean, I think to a certain extent, most of the market action that we've seen on the downside in recent weeks has really just been on the US indices. It's not really had an awful lot of work on DAX and the STX, both of which are still heavily up on the year so far. Very unlike, obviously, the US indices. And I think the US indices, mainly, this is really a reaction to I think it's mainly a reaction to the government and tariffs. Tariffs, I think everyone's hoping that Trump doesn't really mean it. I suspect he does. And he actually announced possibly to try and distract some attention away from this signals shambles. But he announced today that there was going to be a 25% tariff on all foreign cars from next week, and that he's still talking about April 2nd as the Liberation Day, and seems very keen to go ahead with it. I'm planning a post tomorrow or Friday, which I'll probably post on the Bigger Picture Substack. But otherwise, have a look on the Twitter feed, and the link will be to it there. But what I'm going to be talking about is tariffs and what I'm expecting to see over the next few months if Trump really is serious about tariffs, which I think he probably is. Spoiler, I'm not expecting anything good, and I'm thinking we may well go down considerably further, and I'm going to be talking about some of the downside targets I'm looking at. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And SPX didn't make it back to flag support. Obviously, I drew in these. I was looking for a big decline this morning. The main things I was looking for were for the sell signals to play out, which they did. And I was looking to see whether we had a clear breakback below the daily middle band. Now, we got significantly below the daily middle band today, but the daily middle band was 57.14 at the close, and SPX was 57.12 at the close. That, for me, is a close on the band. It's not a close back below. So it wasn't of any real technical significance. Qs, we did actually see a significant, slightly more significant looking close below, but even so, it was pretty marginal. 484.38 against 485.34. Looking at Dire, we still closed above it, a couple of points above, and on IWM, we've got 205.28, and we closed marginally above it. So basically, we had 4 closes really which were on the middle bands. That's not bearish yet. I'm thinking we're going to see a bit of a rally from there, and then I'm thinking we likely resume the downside. But it's not beyond the bounds possibility that we go back and retest these prior highs. Now on here, we broke down slightly below it, but again, topping process, topping patterns. The main 2 options, let's say on IWM here, would be to come down to 201.76, see a bounce, right shoulder, and then go back to the low. But otherwise, what I was looking at here, if you can see the arrows, was basically for a possible IHS right shoulder form, for us to get back up here, make a break up through it, and then we've got an inflection point where we could go up heavily, but I'm expecting us to break down. And what I'm looking at here is a double top forming. So I'm thinking very much we might be seeing a retest of the high here. That's what I was drawing in on the post this morning. And I'm thinking that we might start that bounce from here, although I'm thinking we might make a lower low and do it from there. We will see how that goes. In terms of the IHS right shoulders, would this be enough? Yes, it would. This would make decent right shoulders. We can break up from here, and then we will see. Now, if the tariffs are suddenly cancelled, then we might actually see a move considerably higher. If they're not, well, there's the other way, isn't there? So ideally, from a technical point of view, if we follow this path, we go up, make a marginal higher high, and not too long after that, we would fail. All right, Qs, I drew exactly the same thing. And Dire, I drew exactly the same thing. We've got some 15-minute buy signals here on the futures charts. We've got weak RSI, weak 60-minute buy signals fixed. I'm liking a rally here. Have we come down far enough to make the right shoulders that I was talking about? Yes, we have. We can go lower. But we saw some interesting stuff. Anyway, there was something else I wanted to show you. It's not on equities, but we've got not the same patterns, but kind of mirrors, distorted mirrors on crypto. But look where Bitcoin landed this morning, where I was giving the same forecast this morning that I was expecting to see downside. We made it actually back to the support, and actually it wasn't the only one, because if we look at Ethereum, no, sorry, it wasn't Ethereum. I must have put this Solana. No, we didn't reach it. Sorry, that was just Bitcoin then. But I'm watching that with interest. And Bitcoin, we could see a decent rally, and we could see a retest of the high there. We will see. One way or another, I'm expecting to be going down soon. If we make this retest of the high here, if we follow the arrows, which are not meant to be followed in time, but mainly for direction. If we do that, when we're going to see another opportunity to sell slightly higher than the high we made on the rally so far. So we'll see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at DX. DX is a very slow business waiting for this double bottom to make target. I quite like it, although I would note that in this long period in action here, we've actually made the initial RSI 5 daily buy signal target. We've got a 6-minute sell signal too. That's reached the possible near miss target. I'm still liking the target up in the 104.75 area, but not quite as much as I did before that signal made target. ZB, we've reached a potential flag support here. I'm still leaning towards seeing a retest of this high, and at the moment I'm not seeing anything to agree with that. I have drawn in a potential other trend line here, which, if this breaks down a little more, would make a better support trend line. And I've got that, I think, in about the 115.05 area. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And on US dollar, the RSI 5 buy signal clearly has made target. The weak RSI 14 buy signal hasn't made target, but honestly, I'm taking that less seriously. We've not made the IHS target, and if we could the double bottom target, but if we could just make it, we've got a pretty good chance of tagging this declining resistance, which would be the obvious main target here. I would like to see that, and we will see whether we'll get it. All right, looking at TNX. TNX, again, I've drawn in a potential wedge here. It's actually looking pretty good. This could hold. I am wondering whether we might see a reversal down and retest of the low here, which would match the retest of the high on ZB. We'll see how that goes on TNX. The weak RSI 5 buy signals reached the possible near miss target. We've still got a flag here. It's still broken up, and I've still got a target up in the 49.97 area. If we see a retest of this low, I'm thinking we possibly hit this trend line, but I'm thinking we set up a double bottom here, and that's a good opportunity to start heading back up again. I do have other options here. We could be forming a larger bull flag, but we will see how that goes. But this was already a pretty good bull flag, and I'm thinking we may well just bottom out here and then make a move back up to the highs, which obviously would take TNX down to, sorry, ZB down to probably the 104 to 106 area. We'll see how that goes. All right, CL, we went a bit higher here. We're testing the monthly pivot as resistance. I'm liking this target here. I've got this double bottom target in the 70.7 area, and I'm liking that target. We will see. We've got through the declining resistance. If we can get over the monthly pivot a bit, doesn't need to be an awful lot, then we can make it up here. What I would note is we've got a potential inverted head and shoulder neckline here. If we see a bit of a retrace, which we could, then we could form an IHS to go higher. We will see. I'm keeping an open mind on this. I think the direction of oil here has, well, there's a lot of political and world things that could happen which could affect the price here. So I'm keeping an open mind, but on the bigger picture, I'm still looking for a retest of the low, the major low at 63.57 to make the second low of a double bottom. In G, we've gone slightly lower here, and this is starting, this trend line, nice as it was, is starting to look a little ragged. Either we break up from here soon, or we're going to be breaking down through the monthly pivot to establish an alternative trend line here. It's I would note that if we see a bounce here, it could again be a head and shoulder, right shoulders. So we will see. All right, let's have a look at those two on the bigger picture and on CL. All right, CL, no current divergence. We've seen a break up through the declining resistance, which obviously we could see on the hourly chart. On the bigger picture, I'm still leaning towards seeing the bottom of this wedge hit, which actually would be a pretty good match with the 63.57. So that would be the obvious target after a rally. I would say if we go higher, then I've got the 50 DMA at about 71, and I've got the 200 DMA at about 73. I'd be expecting a fail really at one or the other. So waiting to see which way that goes. In the moment, we're hitting the daily upper band, so it may well be that it needs a bit of retracement. Looking at natural gas, we've got a double top here, which is starting to break down. I'm keeping an open mind on this as well. I would note that on the bigger picture, we've got a target up in the 5.75 to 6.25 area, and I really like that target. But this isn't a bad looking setup to go down. We haven't really got any divergence worth a mention on it. But we do have a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily, and I'm watching to see whether or not we can make some progress down to the targets here, which would be in the 3.04 to 3.2 area. But it wouldn't surprise me if we just made a little traction to the downside and then rejected back up into the high. All right, let's have a look at GC. GC, this looks like an overall bull flag forming. It's moving very slowly, but I'm expecting this to resolve into a retest of this high here. We will see no current divergence on SI. I think this is already resolving up into a retest of the high. 60-minute sell signal is fixed. This could form a flag and make another lower low within that, but I'm not seeing a strong indication that's going to happen. HG has gone higher and has made my target at the retest of 520. It's gone a little beyond it. We've got a very nice looking double top, and I would say that I mentioned this again on Sunday, that I'm expecting to see some economic weakness over coming months, particularly if the tariff plans do go ahead. But likely, in any case, and as I mentioned, Dr. Copper is called Dr. Copper because it's very sensitive to economic activity. If we are going into a recession in the US, which I think we probably are, then I would expect to start seeing some downside on Dr. Copper. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at the metals. On gold, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. It's delivered absolutely nothing so far, and my hopes aren't that high that it's going to start. What I would say is we are at some trendline resistance, not necessarily something I'm really expecting to hold, but I'm certainly watching with interest. Looking at the weekly chart, we've got a possible weekly RSI 14 sell signal brewing. We've got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing. I am wondering if we might start seeing some downside soon. Looking at silver, I've got a nice looking, the main resistance trend line I'm looking at here is this one here at 38. I do have a shorter term one at 35, which could, 35, 36, which could hold, and I'm expecting to see a retest of this high here at 34.86. Possibly that could be the second high of a double top, but it wouldn't surprise me to see it go higher. On palladium, still wondering whether a major double bottom is forming here or possibly an IHS. If so, we could start making some moves to the upside. What I would say against that is, with if we're going to see a large reduction in the amount of cars being sold, well, I think a lot of palladium and platinum goes into cars, so that's worth noting. On platinum, very, very, very long consolidation here, basically 2 years of consolidation and compression. Waiting to see, not really seeing much indication to see that's going to stop anytime soon. All right, copper. Copper, we've gone up and made, hang on, we've made the retest of 5.199 and we've gone significantly beyond it. This could be a big double top. I'm skeptical about a pattern this big actually making target, but we could see a return down to the bottom of it and then possibly a breakdown, at which point I'd be thinking I wouldn't be taking that the bigger target seriously. The bigger target, just out of interest, would be in about the 2.6 area. So considerably lower than anything we've seen on this chart since 2021. All right, on the shorter term charts, well, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. I'm not taking it seriously at this stage. We've also got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. Not taking that seriously either. We'll see. We made the retest of the high on GDX and GDXJ. No current divergence on those. On the hourly charts, I do have a trendline resistance I'm watching on GDX and wondering if we might be overthrowing a megaphone on GDXJ. What I would say overall on the metals is I am seeing some indications that we might see a reversal soon. Okay, let's have a look at currencies. Now on euro, we've got a nice looking double top that's broken down. On the pound, we've got a head and shoulders, which is broken down with a target in the 1.275 area. On USD JPY, we've actually got an IHS which is breaking up, although that's not quite. Well, I mean, that fits with the double bottom that we're seeing on US dollar, and but it's not really a great fit with the bigger picture on the dollar. So I'm wondering about that. I'm not sure it's going to make target. USD CAD, no real pattern here. Not a great deal to see on Australian dollar. Not a lot on NZ either. Okay, KC. KC, we've been seeing. I keep seeing trend headlines about some selling on coffee, but we're not actually seeing it on price here. I am still wondering if we might be doing A, B, C, and do a lower low within this. We've not seeing any sign of that happening so far, and currently we're over the monthly pivot. We could just be heading back to retest this high here at 430. I am expecting to see that happen at some point. On sugar, we had a little double top. We broke down. We made target, and it's been consolidating since. Don't have anything really on the hourly chart to look at direction. In terms of soy, we've got a very nice looking little double bottom here, keeping an open mind. Wheat, we've got a on cocoa, we've got a nice looking little double bottom here. It's we might see a bit of a rally here. Bigger picture, we're probably going down on cocoa. On wheat, leaning towards seeing a retest of the low. I've been leaning towards it all week and we're making pretty good progress towards it, but we haven't hit it yet. Corn, wondering about a retest of the low too. And soy, this looks like a bearish triangle, and the target after it breaks down would be a retest of low, and it may be breaking down now. Looking at cotton, you've got a possible flag forming here. We've already made the head and shoulder target with a bit of change. We could be making a bear flag before we go back and do a full retest of this low here in the 62.5 area. Looking at lumber, we've actually not quite made a retest of the high here, but I was interested to see on my bigger picture chart. We've already done it. I'll show you that in a minute. But live cattle could be forming a bull flag here. But I'm wondering about a bit more downside first. Lean hogs, we're consolidating, and I'm wondering about a retest of this low here in the 91.9 area. Okay, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And right, coffee. On the much bigger picture, you can see I've mentioned how very high we are by historical standards. Not as high as cocoa went by historical standards, but still a long way up. Not seeing a lot of signs of reversal, but we would start probably getting some significant negative divergence on the certainly on the weekly RSI 5 and RSI 14 if we go back up into retesting this high, and I'm leaning towards seeing that. Looking at sugar, on the much bigger picture, I'm wondering about this head and shoulders and whether this is going to break down and make targets a lot lower. This would have a target in about the 0.07 area. That seems a very long way. But in terms of the historical chart, that's not actually out of reasonable bounds. I am thinking we might find some support here. We will see. But you can see the head and shoulders is sloping up. If we get down, that means that if we get down to retest this low here at 1752, then we will be breaking down from it. So I'll be watching that. On cocoa, by historical standards, we are very, very, very high. Now, I'm not thinking this is obviously a double top. I've not marked it in because I don't really think that a double top with a target, minimum target, really at about the 427 area and a maximum target which would be about minus 200 is worth taking seriously. I see patterns like this form sometimes, and I don't really, none of them really make a decent stab at making target unless there's reason to believe that the stock itself is actually dying. Cocoa is not dying. On the bigger picture chart, on the smaller picture chart, we've got an RSI 14 buy signal fixed on the daily, RSI 5 buy signal fixed. I quite like the little level bottom, and I'm leaning towards it making target. I'm doubtful about it making a very big rally, though. On wheat, wondering about a retest of this low, not high by historical standards. I am thinking that a lot of things may be weakened by a weakening economy soon, and this could be one of them. Corn, leaning towards seeing a retest of the low, and we will see what happens when we get there. On soy, leaning towards seeing a retest of this low. I am thinking that could well be the second low of a double bottom, but I think we're getting close enough to it that I am wondering about a possible retest of the low here at 955.40. Looking at cotton, cotton not extended by historical standards. We've seen a big move down here. I'd really like to see a low here. This isn't the best looking setup, and actually I've lost my best looking chart because stock charts stopped covering the future, the front month future, and I'm not finding the continuous chart an acceptable substitute. Nonetheless, could possibly be forming an IHS here, but I don't think this chart is good enough to really be working with. Looking at lumber, not high by modern standards, and certainly nothing compared to the COVID highs and so on. But I am wondering if we're making a double top here in the short term, and if we saw a sustained break below the 600 area, we could see a move down that would basically be into about the 520 area. I'm thinking we might see that. It's been a nice move up, and that would be a solid retracement to see. We shall see. We've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed, but and we've got a possible weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing. I'm thinking this might be setting up for a significant reversal. And again, if we've got a struggling economy, then that won't just affect copper. It would also tend to affect lumber as well. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Looking back at equities for a moment, I'm leaning towards seeing some rally here. I am thinking this might lead towards a retest of the high or marginal high. Soon after that, though, at least unless tariff plans change, I'm expecting to see lower. I'm expecting to see the retest of this low here. I'll be writing a post tomorrow or Friday morning about where I'm expecting to go after that, which would be significantly lower. We've still got all of the initial targets for the patterns that I drew at the high just over a month ago. Well, 5 weeks ago. It's all of those. None of those have made target. All of them broken down. I'm still expecting them to make target. I think this has all just been a counter trend rally. We could still see a higher high within that rally, but I think we're either at the end or we're very close to it. All right, great. In that case, that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Sunday.